My name's Allie, and this is an old channel that I haven't done much with for a long time. And I'm going to start using it again, hopefully at least once a month, because I've decided that the most important thing I can do as a tarot reader or somebody who studies tarot is create my own tarot deck or oracle deck. I haven't decided which one. I am a public school teacher, and we have been dealing with issues surrounding generative AI and academic dishonesty for a few years now. And we've been waiting for guidance from our district regarding how to handle what is essentially cheating. And our district finally sent us a pretty thick packet with a lot of information on how we as teachers should be using generative AI in our lessons and in our classrooms, and how we should be teaching our students to use it ethically. Of course, what we were looking for was guidance on academic dishonesty, and we got one page in the whole guidance manual regarding academic dishonesty. And that page suggested that if our students are using generative AI for cheating, then that's probably because we as their teachers did not talk about generative AI use in a positive light. Essentially, that we should change how we talk about generative AI in our classrooms, and if we talk about it positively, that will stop our students from cheating. I know, like me, you may have even thought about how AI could actually be an interesting tool for tarot decks or oracle deck creation, or even a tool for use in your witchcraft. As a chaos witch, generative AI, that concept is really fascinating. And I can't really speak to anybody else's morals, but to my morals, personally, I would not feel okay with inviting technology into my practice that steals from other users, from other internet users, from artists. I've been having really crazy dreams. I had to get on a CPAP machine. You can see it hanging back there. I got on the CPAP machine in March, and I think I really started to feel the benefit of using it probably September or October, something like that. And the way that I knew that it was actually benefiting my sleep was that I started to remember my dreams for the first time in, I don't know, like maybe 20 years, something like that. I just hadn't been sleeping well for a really, really long time. And now I can sleep through the night, and I remember dreams every single morning. And it's been such a welcome change in my life to remember my dreams. My dreams are usually heavily influenced by whatever movie my husband and I watched the night before, and that kind of depends on how immersive the movie was, or how visually interesting the movie was, or if it was like emotionally driven, then it might not look like the movie, it might just have that vibe. And I've noticed in the past couple weeks, just tracking my dreams, that I've been having a lot of dreams about water. Last night, it was a dream about how I think I was like trying to get around in some kind of big sports stadium. And you know how like you are walking around on the bleachers and you're trying to get around people without being too much of a pain. And then you would get to this part where the stadium just like dropped off into the water, like it was on a rocky cliff, and there was ocean all around the back of the stadium, and you would have to get down in the water and hold on to the rock cliff and move your way across the back of the stadium through the water. And I did that several times in this dream. Like my dreams are often a loop like that, where I achieve it one time, but then I have to go back through again, that kind of thing. And I remember seeing boxes of people's stuff like out on this cliff, and I was looking in them and I saw stuff that belonged to people I know, that I've known for years and years and years, and thought, wow, that's so and so stuff. I should tell him that I saw that when I see him later. And a lot of my dreams recently have been moving around in different buildings, but it's also watery, which is interesting. One of my dreams recently, just last week, I was having difficulty sleeping and I kept waking up over and over again. And then every time I would wake up, I would see a word printed in black letters on white, like the cards. And I felt like when I woke up that I'd been dreaming of tarot cards. And then, much like in my dream where I was holding on to the cliff to get around the water, I remembered this box, this open box with belongings in it. And inside, the belongings in this box are white cards with words on them. These are my first attempts at deck creation. I took some index cards and I used a corner rounder and I rounded off the corners, and then I wrote titles for the cards. This one is kind of a tarot deck and this one is more an oracle deck. And my idea was that I would write down the definition of the card on the back where the lines were, and then a drawing on the front, and that I would use the cards, as imperfect as they were, just as an opportunity to figure out maybe a new oracle system. Because, like many of you, I'm just kind of bewildered by and irritated with the amount of Rider-Waite clones that are out there. Or, you know, maybe it's not exactly a clone, but they've put like cats dressed up as harlequins in it, and now it's basically a Rider-Waite Smith deck, but with a different theme or with different characters. I own a lot of decks like that. I'm not saying that you shouldn't make a deck like that or you shouldn't buy a deck like that, but there's just so many of them. And I thought maybe it would be interesting to play around with the cards until I figured out a new system. And then maybe my art skills would catch up and I could eventually illustrate a deck of my own. But I kind of abandoned both of these ideas pretty quickly, and they've just been sitting in this box for a few years, for better or for worse. And I've even since then started and abandoned a Pip, like Marseille kind of inspired deck on Procreate. But here's the thing. AI is taking over creative spaces, and the people in power are using AI to rewrite our history, and they are hoping that their disinformation campaigns will continue to create dumber and dumber citizens that are easier and easier to control. We're now at the beginning of a second Trump presidency, and I'm sorry if his name triggers you. I know for the first one, a lot of us censored his name. It was so triggering after the election cycle that we couldn't even stand hearing it by the time he was actually elected. But there's so much power in a name, and we're giving him power if we are too afraid or too hurt to say his name out loud. Before Trump was elected the first time, when I wrote down in my study journal as I was doing tarot readings, I referred to the major arcana as the Trump suit, because that's what that suit does. It was based on the Trifoni parades in Rome, and the characters were meant to trump each other, except for the Fool. The Fool is always able to move in between all of those places freely. But otherwise, the hierarchy was set up to trump each other. And I just want to point out that there are earthly rulers in the major arcana, but they are low on the major arcana numbers. Number 21 is not the president or any other ruler. It's the world. There's a lot after an emperor. Last night I sat down and I drew something that was based on a shot in Brian De Palma's film Sisters, which is a wild ride, but I enjoy it. And in Sisters, there is a window that looks out into somebody else's window in the apartment complex, and they're neighbors, and they're able to look into each other's houses, but they don't know each other at all. And so when I first drew it, I named it The Neighbor, but then I took out the and just called it Neighbors, because the movie is Sisters, and I felt like it was more appropriate. But then I thought about it, and I thought that's a better title, because it focuses on the relationship between two people and not looking in on another person. And maybe it would encourage us to get to know the people that we see every day, that, we don't know their name, but they live very close to us. They're both neighbors. It's a two-way street. It's not just about the other person. And, I would redraw this. I drew it up here because I was assuming that I was going to have to draw several iterations of the window before I got one that I actually liked. But I liked it, and so I kept building around it. But that's why it's so tall up on the page. So there's definitely things that I would change about the composition and things like that. But I just thought, where would that fit in to an oracle deck? And these other movies that we've been watching that kind of set the tone for my dreams, where would they fit into an oracle deck? And it feels like, with everything going on with technology and these big tech corporations and, these men who insist on owning the world because They believe that the world's coming to an end anyway, and they are going to be safe, but everybody else will die. And so they just want to see the end of the world happen faster so that they can benefit from the end of the world faster. These, I think they call it accelerationism, like Elon Musk's stupid shit. Seeing these disinformation campaigns and wondering, my students who are in my English classes who love writing, my students who are in my film studies and my theater class who love filmmaking, is there going to be a place for them much, much longer? Well, yes, of course there will be. There's always going to be human expression. And it might not be tomorrow or next year or 4 years from now, but the value of human ingenuity will shine through. We are not going to lose all of that to AI. But right now, at the beginning of a second Trump presidency, with everything that's going on, I really feel like debt creation, personal debt creation, is the most important thing that you could do as somebody who studies tarot or oracle cards. And you would be in good company. If I'm not mistaken, it was an expectation within the Golden Dawn that members actually make their own tarot decks, and that's a big part of the reason why we have the Rider-Waite-Smith in the first place, among other decks that were by Golden Dawn members. And even if you're not a really good artist, I'm not a really good artist, but I've heard from more than one deck creator that by the time they finished the last card, they had to go back and redo the first several cards because their drawing, their art skills had gotten so much better over the course of illustrating a deck that the first ones that they drew didn't even match up with the style of the rest of the deck anymore. And so they had to redo those cards. That's really exciting to me. The idea that a longer term project, doing something that I'm still pretty shaky at, could make me better at something I've always wanted to do well anyway, that is really exciting to me. And it's really exciting to me the idea of tarot readers making tarot decks, not artists. Nothing against artists, obviously, but I think some of the decks we have because indie artists thought it would be a good art project and maybe didn't think through, well, how are the decisions I'm making in my artwork changing how a reading would work, because they weren't approaching it as a reader. So I think that this is something that I want to keep up with, and I want to use this channel to keep myself honest, not forget that I'm doing it, and update on how the process is going, because it's just too important that we continue to hear from a variety of real human voices, having a variety of real human experiences, and translating or transmuting that into art. Not just to battle generative AI, but for our souls, for the betterment of our practice. Whatever you feel that compels you to show up every day for your practice, see if you can find a way to put that into creating a deck of your own, because we need it. And I know that some of you are saying, woman, we do not need more decks. There's so many decks out there. There's more decks than we could possibly keep up with. I know. And if you search on Etsy for tarot decks, it is overrun with indie-made decks. But how thoughtful are they? I bought a deck for $75 maybe last year because I loved the color palette, and it was a theme oracle deck that, I didn't have a deck with that theme. And so I talked myself into getting it. It did not come in a box. It did not come with a little white book. And as I was going through the artwork, it was clear that it was made with AI. And when I went back to the creator shop and looked more closely, I realized that there is no way the creator of the deck had made all of the decks in her shop without AI. There were too many of them. She was spitting too many of them out too quickly for them to be human created or thoughtfully created. That stuff is all over the place. Not to mention certain sites or apps that make you feel like a billionaire that are selling fake versions of human-made decks. So even if you don't sell it or show it to other people, because Lord knows, posting your art on the internet these days is just more training for AI. But even if you don't share it, consider it something for your private individual practice that you do for you. And even if you don't print it for other people or you don't make it available to other people to buy, its existence is still a positive, a benefit for the world. It is. Just you making it, thinking about it, creating it, spending so much time loving it is a gift to the world, even if you don't give the world the deck. So please, the thing that I love about the tarot community on YouTube is that it's one of the communities that actually interacts with each other. There are tags that people do to do response videos and things like that for each other. I don't see that in any other community on YouTube. So please consider the possibility that this is your year. This is the year that you are actually going to sit down and start making an oracle deck. Even if you're just printing out photos and collaging on top of them and then gluing them to a cereal box to reinforce them and rounding the corners off and just having a big, chunky, handmade deck like that. Do it. The world needs it more now than it ever has before. Thank you. I love you. I will update you throughout my process of doing this, but I intend to figure this out and do it and actually follow through with it, even if it just means I get to be proud of myself. So I will talk to you next time, and in the meantime, keep making and fuck Trump.